the long arm that once changed the course of the war and forced the occupiers to abandon Kherson and then flip the board again.
Атакамси себе показали.
Forcing the Russians to rethink the meaning of the word rear. How is a weapon once so top secret and strategic for Ukraine gradually sliding back into a tactical role? What are the legendary HIMARS hunting these days?
Hello to all viewers of Weapons of Victory. We are currently at one of the positions held by Ukrainian defenders who are targeting Russian forces with American HIMARS.
Do they still stand a chance on a battlefield now totally dominated by drones?
When nobody else can handle it, our rocket flies.
And could HIMARS ever reclaim its status as a true game changer?
Guys, we've got a target.
Summer 2026. The so-called Oleksandrivka direction, where 3 Ukrainian regions meet. A HIMARS MLRS crew receives target coordinates and heads out on a combat mission. The needed data is fed into the fire control system while still en route. The computer runs the calculations instantly, and the shot fires almost the second the vehicle reaches its firing position. Hit like if you're just as mesmerized by this display of unshakable firepower. Then comes the equally fast teardown and movement again. In modern war, any hesitation carries deadly risk.
For the enemy, we're priority target number 1, and he's really hunting us. Because we caused him a whole lot of trouble, let's put it that way.
The rocket hasn't even reached the target yet, and HIMARS is already pulling out of position. Because within minutes, strike drones, KABs, or even an Iskander will come down on the exact spot where the vehicle just stood. When it comes to hunting HIMARSs, the Russians spare neither resources nor effort. But today, the guys aren't rushing just for safety reasons. Aerial recon reported a direct hit.
Mission accomplished flawlessly.
It's not like this is anything unusual, but seeing your own work from the outside is always something.
So this is what today's work looks like.
This time, HIMARS took out a gun in the enemy's rear.
Direct hit on target. Fragmentation radius is 50 meters, meaning all enemy positions in that zone should be wiped out.
HIMARS was developed, first and foremost, for counter-battery warfare back in the final years of the last century. But in the early stage of its service in Ukraine, these systems carried out missions with far higher stakes. Why? And which ones exactly? Ukraine received its first HIMARSs in June 2022. By that point, the front was already crawling forward at a snail's pace, but the occupiers had a massive advantage in artillery. Tens of thousands of shells rained down on Ukrainian positions every single day. It seemed like there was almost no way to change the situation. But this American rocket system, in the hands of Ukrainian fighters, did something that even a lot of military experts didn't see coming back then. It didn't hunt tanks. It didn't get into artillery duels. It didn't work the front line. So how did the Ukrainians actually use it?
Depots are a very important target. I've got friends in the artillery who confirm that because we're hitting more of the occupiers' ammo and depots, they can't bring enough firepower down on our infantry, on our artillery.
Ammunition depots, command posts, bridges, river crossings, rail hubs, everything that let the Russian grouping keep fighting the war suddenly found itself under threat. The occupiers ran into a problem they couldn't fix fast. They simply didn't know how to stop HIMARS.
Because this launcher moves so fast, the odds of catching us drop to almost nothing. Basically, we minimize every factor that could let the enemy spot us and hit us, or find our staging areas, our concentration zones, and so on.
High mobility isn't just baked into the designer's concept, it's literally in the first words of the name. High mobility artillery rocket system. So catching a HIMARS in place is nearly impossible. Get the coordinates, move out, fire the rockets, and a minute later, gone. By the time the Russians opened return fire, the Ukrainian vehicle had long since disappeared. Reports came in that Russian command promised not just a medal, but an immediate Hero of Russia star for anyone who destroyed one of these launchers.
Those heroes of Russia can pretty much only get the title posthumously, thanks to HIMARSs. Destroying a HIMARS is nearly impossible given its mobility and speed. And through the whole war, not a single HIMARS has been destroyed, except maybe a few wooden decoys.
That testimony is 3 years old now, and since then the tally isn't exactly clean anymore, of course. Especially in the Kremlin propaganda reports. Putin's Ministry of Defense has even reported destroying resupply and reload vehicles that never existed in the first place, because HIMARS reloads itself. and it does it with a full pack of 6 rockets at once. In their fantasies, Russian generals regularly shoot down rockets fired from HIMARS too, though there's still no solid evidence of that ever happening. It's hard to imagine even in theory. Intercepting a small, extremely fast rocket that covers its maximum range of 90 kilometers, about 56 miles, in 90 seconds would take nothing short of a miracle. So what does reality actually look like? As of late May 2026, according to the Oryx portal, 4 launchers have been destroyed and another 4 damaged. That's unfortunate, but for a war of this scale and intensity, it's genuinely a drop in the bucket, especially compared to the Russian MLRSs that Ukrainian troops are scrapping by the dozen every month. And it's often HIMARS doing the scrapping. Facing off against it, Russian Grads, Uragans, and Smerchs usually don't stand a chance.
It all happens really fast. With a Smerch, you need 20-25 minutes. Here it's about 5 minutes, and the job's already done. The rocket's already flying at the enemy.
As for accuracy, there's not much to even discuss.
Maximum precision. We're like snipers. We hit exactly where we need to.
If you wanna see more videos like this, you should subscribe to the Weapons of Victory channel right now. It's an order.
Where does this phenomenal accuracy come from? And why is it out of reach for Russian MLRSs?
In flight, the rocket pulls in the navigation keys we set beforehand, and that's what gets us accuracy down to 5 meters. It's extremely precise, extremely effective.
In other words, modern HIMARS rockets correct their course mid-flight using an inertial guidance system plus GPS. The Russians, meanwhile, still mostly work the old Soviet way, blanketing huge areas with salvos of unguided rockets. But Ukrainian troops went even further. They learned how to use HIMARS to hit even moving targets.
We hit a column of S-300 air defense assets, an important one, since we've been staking it out for a long time. And with that, we proved HIMARS can actually do this.
And that's with no seeker heads or cameras on the rockets at all. Just tight coordination with recon.
It's such a satisfying moment of waiting when it's about to hit, and you're the one who gets to witness it. You're the one who captures that unbelievable shot of everything burning and blazing.
How did this sudden Ukrainian advantage change the course of the war? By the fall of 2022, the Russians already felt the crushing effect and had to push their ammo depots dozens of kilometers further from the front. And the collapse of logistics support for their grouping in Kherson forced the occupiers to abandon that Ukrainian city, essentially without a fight. With their supply lines stretched out, Russian units felt shell hunger for the first time. Their beloved firewall tactic started breaking down. It looked like HIMARS was the universal solution that had rewritten the rules of war. But every war is a constant race of adaptations, and soon the Russians found their answer. What did they come up with, and how did the Ukrainians respond? Using GPS spoofing, the Russians learned to knock rockets off target. Does that mean HIMARS stopped hitting its marks? Of course not. Electronic warfare's effectiveness is often relative, and knocking a rocket off by a few meters doesn't always save the target, especially when you're talking about, say, an airburst detonation of a shrapnel warhead packed with tens of thousands of small fragments. But the effectiveness of these strikes really did drop. So what was there to do? The experience of using GMLRS in a war against a powerful adversary handed the American manufacturer 2 tasks at once. First, make the rockets more resistant to EW. Second, speed up development of longer-range munitions. Why? Because by that point, the Russians had already pulled their logistics and command posts deeper into the rear. At the same time, attention turned to a fairly unusual munition developed by Boeing on its own initiative, the GLSDB, Ground-Launched Small-Diameter Bomb. What made it so unusual? It was essentially a precision-guided glide bomb taught to launch from the ground, using a motor borrowed from GMLRS, a kind of hybrid with a range of 150 kilometers, about 93 miles, and an unpredictable flight path. On paper, it all looked perfect, but war made its own corrections yet again. The problem was already a familiar one: electronic warfare. The glide phase made GLSDB's flight longer and gave the enemy more time to mess with the munition's navigation. Was this project a failure? Not at all. At the very least, it gave valuable experience and pointed toward further development. But it hasn't become a game changer for now. Meanwhile, Washington was already coming around politically to handing Ukraine another HIMARS munition, the ATACMS Operational Tactical Ballistic Missile, with a range of up to 300 kilometers, about 186 miles. Ukrainian troops first used them in Operation Dragonfly, overnight on October 17, 2023.
Атакамси себе показали.
Back then, at field airfields near occupied Berdyansk and Luhansk, these rockets with cluster warheads destroyed and damaged more than 24 Russian helicopters. Then came strikes on Russian air defense assets, depots, and other high-value sites.
We've used them, and pretty often too. I won't tell you about specific targets, that's a question for command. They're a lot more effective, because you can hit a target deep in enemy territory, the range is much bigger. Plus, they're harder to shoot down or jam with EW.
One of the most recent known examples, a combined strike on a storage and launch site for Shahed kamikaze drones. The same Iran used to attack American bases in the region on the grounds of the former airport in occupied Donetsk. But not many of these rockets were ever handed over to Ukraine, and no new shipments are expected right now because of Trump administration doesn't want to support Ukraine with weapons. Drones, the British-French Storm Shadow/Scalp cruise missiles, and Ukraine's own Neptune and Flamingo missiles have taken over the deep strike niche against the enemy's rear. Does that mean HIMARS, this legend for Ukrainians, is now out of a job? Quite the opposite. It's gone back to the job it was built for, hitting high-value targets close to the front line.
The tempo's high because the enemy is advancing less now and digging in more, and we need to be working over their staging points, their fortified areas, not letting them grab a tactical advantage.
Right now, one of the most sought-after targets for these guys is enemy UAV operator bases.
Could be strike drones, could be recon ones. We can hit a pretty solid target for our infantry here. That's a plus too, because whether it's strike or recon drones, for the enemy that's a painful loss. We're blinding them.
But is it even worth risking an expensive HIMARS where enemy drones are hunting for it, when Ukraine's own UAVs could handle the job just fine? Turns out, not every target is one a drone can sink its teeth into. They're slower, easier to intercept or jam with EW, and they usually carry a much lighter warhead. So HIMARS and its older brother, the M270, often end up being the last resort when nothing else will do.
When nobody else can handle it, our rocket flies.
Has HIMARS used up all its potential by this point, thanks to its versatility? No. The US has already fielded a new rocket for this platform, the PrSM, and already tested it in the war against Iran. It flies 500 kilometers, about 311 miles, and unlike ATACMS, two of them fit into a single launch pod. But right now, the White House isn't inclined to hand over or even sell these rockets to Ukraine. And there's a catch besides. The PrSM's warhead weighs less than 100 kilograms, about 220 pounds. Ukraine's own long-range strike drones carry roughly the same. So the question is, does it even make sense to chase expensive weaponry with questionable added value? Write us in the comments. What matters more, range, speed, and accuracy, or warhead power? And which of these would you say is worth sacrificing? Stay safe and support Ukraine.